Good morning, young brilliant minds. I am so excited for today's lesson. So today we are going to be reading one of my favorite plays by Shakespeare, Macbeth. And so it should only take you about 4 or 5 hours to read. That's it. I'm going to post a link after this video to the National Emergency Library where you can get a copy for free. And you're going to read that, and then later on Google Meet today we're going to discuss Macbeth, and we're going to do so using some literary theory lenses. So we're going to discuss Macbeth using the theory of psychoanalytic criticism as well as historical criticism. And all of this is going to be due today, which is April 1st. And April 1st is April Fool's Day! Just kidding. We're not reading Macbeth. We're going to do something else today, so don't panic. You'll read Macbeth later when you're in high school, rather. Okay, so today we are actually going to do some ed puzzles, and the reason why I'm having you do some ed puzzles is because we are going to be starting a new book entitled Hattie Big Sky, and it picks up very nicely where we left off with Andrew Carnegie. And with Andrew Carnegie, we had read that he had passed away in 1918, and Hattie Big Sky picks up in 1917, the year before Carnegie passed away. So much of what we read about and what was going on in history and Carnegie's life is going to relate to Hattie Big Sky. Now, Hattie Big Sky is historical fiction, so it is based on history, but is not actually a true story. So there are two things that I would like you to investigate today on Ed Puzzle. One is the Homestead Act. We briefly talked about the Homestead Act in Andrew Carnegie's book, but we're going to talk more about that and what was it like to actually be a homesteader. And second, we are going to be discussing how America entered World War I, and that occurred in 1917. So you don't need to know everything about World War I in order to understand the book, but I do want you to know how the U.S. got involved and how that got started, because that is going to play a critical role, especially with one of the characters named Charlie and Hattie Big Sky, who ends up enlisting and going to World War I to fight. So there are a couple other assignments that I posted earlier this week that I thought I would talk to you about and just check in to see how you're doing and give you some more instruction. So at this point, I am going to show you those assignments on Google Classroom, go over instructions. If you have further questions after this video, just let me know. Okay, so when you go to Google Classwork, you will see that I've organized things a little bit differently on Google Classroom, just trying to make sure that it's all easier for you to find. So you want to look under week 2, and I've divided week 2 into assignments and videos. So that's a little bit new if you didn't notice that already this week. So day 1, the first day this week, on Monday, I asked you to work on the best figurative language written by Wildcats examples. So you're going to open up that document, and these are all examples written by you guys, and they were fantastic. So you should see, if you did this assignment, each of your names posted along with one of your examples. Some of you had many awesome examples, so it was really hard for me to pick. So I'm sorry if the one that you maybe wanted is not posted out there. I also tried to kind of create an even amount of these different types. So it's not perfectly even, but you definitely will be using all of these more than once down below. So if you haven't already figured it out or tried it, you look at the student's name if you wish. It's not really important to look at. It doesn't really help you with the answer. And then you go to their example, you read it, you use this word bank up above, think about which one it is, and then you type in your answer here. Now, what's going to happen, and some of you might have already seen me do this, is I'm going to go through and I'm going to check them. If you have any incorrect, I am going to highlight them in red. I'm going to put a little comment on your doc, and then I'm going to send it back to you to redo. And you won't get the 30 points up here until you have fixed it and it's entirely correct. So I may be shooting it back to you a couple times depending on how many answers you have correct or incorrect. So expect to see that throughout the week. Some of you yesterday already had that sent back to you by me because you had finished it and I had told you which ones you needed to fix. If you have them all correct, then you'll see a 30 out of 30 pop up. If not, you'll get it sent back to you again to try one more time. I want to make sure that you guys know figurative language really well before you go on to Mrs. Allen's class next year. That'll make your life a lot easier. I'm going to take you back to this classwork page, and the second assignment, yesterday's assignment, was a vocabulary story. So you will see that you have two documents here. You have my PowerPoint lesson, or it's actually Google Slides rather, And it gives you basically the words, the parts of speech, the definition, and I also did 2 example sentences for each. I know I usually verbally give you those sentence examples in class, and in the absence of being able to do that, I have decided to put up there 2 examples so you can see how those work. I'm going to go through those for you in just a moment in case you need to know how those words are pronounced, or you want more explanation of the sentences. Also, please feel free to email me or Google comment. Those are fine too. Over here is the assignment for the week 19 vocabulary story. So I'm going to open that up and talk to you about that just briefly. So there's a couple important directions up here. If it's in yellow, I've set up your MLA format. I just want you to change that. If you want to see the rubric of how you will be graded, you obviously want to scroll to the bottom. So I'm just really looking for 4 components. I'm looking to see that you used all 10 vocabulary words correctly. I'm looking to see that your story has 2 or more well-developed characters. So I don't want just names, like try to give them some personality, try to help us to get to know them a little bit. It should use complete sentences. That should be understood. We always use complete sentences when we're writing for English. And it should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. So the story should be set up, there should be some action in the middle, and then there should be an ending or resolution. I'm not looking for anything super elaborate. It's up to you how many paragraphs you want. Also, in terms of whether you want to use dialogue or not use dialogue, I will leave that up to you, but these are the 4 big things that I am looking for. And again, if you have further questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. So up here, again, you will fill in your MLA format information and begin typing right here. You can delete this and just start typing when you're ready. Don't forget to indent paragraphs, and if you're using dialogue, you start a new paragraph every time a new character speaks. So just a little reminder on dialogue as well. Okay, back to the classwork tab. I am going to show you today's assignment and then I'll go through the vocab words. If you feel like you know the vocab words and you understand how to use them, you don't have to watch the rest of this video, but I would recommend it, but you don't have to. So today's assignment is actually posted under videos. So you're going to see one that is a Homestead Act Ed puzzle and a World War I Enters America puzzle. And so you click on that assignment, you will click on the link, you will complete it. There are some multiple choice questions that you need to answer. And then when you're done, it'll turn it in for you. Okay. Same thing with the World War I Enters America, or sorry, America Enters World War I rather. Okay. Now let's go back to vocab. And again, if you feel like you know what you're doing with vocab, it's not necessary for you to listen to the rest of this video, but I wanted to do this in order to provide you with some support and at least let you know how these words are pronounced. Okay, so this is week 19 for all of you. And again, the assignment is to write a story since we don't have your notebooks. Here are more specific instructions for your story, and there are also instructions listed on your Google Doc. So our next book, as I said earlier, is historical fiction, which means it's false, but it's based on real historical events. You're going to see references to the Homestead Act and World War I and Hattie Big Sky. So if you wish, you can make your story a historical fiction as well. If you haven't started writing it yet, if you want to watch those Ed Puzzle videos and get inspiration of how to use these vocab words, you can do that too. Okay, this is just how the slides will look, just because we usually don't use vocabulary like this. Usually I give you a handout with the vocab words. So the slide format will look like this. There's the word, the part of speech is underneath, and then the definition. And then I have written, as opposed to verbally given you, 2 example sentences. All right, the first one is enlist, and that's a verb. So you can add ed or ing to it if you wish. I didn't in my sentences, but you are welcome to. So like enlisted or enlisting, you can use those too. And this is a person who would engage for duty in the armed forces. So for example, Carnegie did not enlist during the Civil War, and he was too old to enlist during World War I. And then Margot wanted to enlist because she felt it was her patriotic duty. So both being used as a verb as an action, something you would do. The Kaiser, this is a very specific word. The Kaiser was the emperor of Germany from 1871 to 1918. Actually, there were two Kaisers. We'll be focusing more on the latter, Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was involved in World War I, a key player. So Wilhelm II was the last Kaiser of Germany. And another fun fact about Wilhelm II, Kaiser Wilhelm II had a paralyzed arm due to a doctor's mistake during his birth. And as I said, the next book that we read, there's going to be references to Kaiser Wilhelm II. So if you want to learn more about him, this is optional, but if you want to know more about this man, there is a link at the bottom of this PowerPoint slide that you can see in blue at the bottom here. Okay, switch is a verb. It's not a good action. Switch means to strike or hit someone with a slender, flexible whip, rod, or twig. So to go back to our Carnegie book again, Mr. Martin, Carnegie's teacher, never had to switch Carnegie because Carnegie was always an enthusiastic learner, like all of you. And the second one, Mother switched Felicity because Felicity refused to do her morning chores. Obviously, switching is highly frowned upon in our society today, but it was very common for children to be switched by their parents or teachers in the early 1900s and obviously 1800s as well. Southpaw is a noun. It's basically a nickname for a left-handed person, especially a left-handed person that plays baseball. So Marcus, who was a southpaw, threw the best curveball. And it was always easy for Melissa to find her baseball glove amongst her brother's gloves since she was a southpaw and none of her brothers were. So notice that I use the word southpaw to refer to someone who is left-handed as well as someone who plays baseball. So you will want to strive to do that too. Gall is a verb. It's not a seagull. That would be G-U-L-L, okay, G-A-L-L. And that means to irritate, annoy, or vex someone. So you've probably all been galled by someone before. So here's an example. Sebastian galled his sister by pinching her arm continuously. So he's irritating his sister. He is vexing his sister. He's annoying her, okay, that sort of thing. And gossip really galls me is another example. True statement. I do not like gossip. Okay, bounty is something that is given generously. We are not talking about like a bounty hunter. That's a different definition of bounty. So this definition you want to use is something that is given generously. So for example, many people were blessed by Carnegie's bounty, especially his donation of 2,811 libraries. Notice I've used it as a noun, his bounty. And B, Carol and Raymond won the lottery. With this bounty, meaning something that was given to them generously, they could pay off their home and retire. So you want to use it as a noun. And again, it's not the same as a bounty hunter. Claim. We are not using this as a claim like an argument you make. We are going to use this more specifically to refer to a tract of free, and I'm putting free in quotation marks, you'll understand why later, farmland in the West that was offered during the Homestead Act, which was in 1862, approved by Abraham Lincoln, a president that we read about in Carnegie's book earlier. So the family piled all their belongings into the covered wagon and headed to their claim. You'll see later in the late 1800s, 1900s, a lot of people moved out west by train as that became more popular and the transcontinental train expanded and went westward across the whole U.S., as we talked about in Carnegie's book too. Farming their claim was more difficult than they expected because of droughts, locusts, and dangerous storms. The video that I have for you today is going to show you a great example of that. Okay, stake. We are using this, again, in a very specific way. It means to assert your right to a piece of land, as if by placing stakes around it or meeting some legal requirements. You will see today in the video that many single women and former slaves traveled west to stake a claim in response to the Homestead Act. Notice I'm using stake there as a verb. Oh, sorry. On your PowerPoint slide it says adjective. I apologize. I'll have to fix that. Again, guys, this should be verb. I'm sorry. And then railroad pamphlets made staking a claim seem glamorous, but it was not. And you will see that as well. Okay, steadfast is an adjective. And again, I apologize. I guess when I copied over my slides, it didn't work correctly. It's a firm belief and determination, loyal. So Lacey was a steadfast friend. She was always there to help out her friend Vivian. So she is loyal, a loyal friend. And Nathan knew his steadfast dog would protect him if he was ever in danger. Finally, contemptible. This is an adjective. I did get that right. It's someone or something that is worthy of being despised or hated. So, for example, the judge was appalled by the criminal's contemptible acts. Notice that contemptible is an adjective that describes the acts that the criminal committed. Or the contemptible groundhog, meaning the groundhog that is worthy of being despised, hated. Galled Harold. there's that word gall again, irritated Harold because it kept eating all the food in his garden.